As business owners and as leaders, we reinforce this and we don't even realize it sometimes. Activity does not equal productivity. Many times we as leaders, we confuse this motion, this busyness with momentum. What is one thing that you're doing that directly drives our biggest goal? Busyness doesn't happen on its own. Unfortunately, what happens starts with the leader. Alignment allows our teams, our businesses, your employees to feel like they are working towards something that's bigger than themselves. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to today's episode. Let me ask you a hard question. Is your team truly productive or are they just busy? Think about it. All these emails flying back and forth, endless meetings, we got Slack messages at all hours, and yet when we get to the end of the week, you look around and ask yourself, did we actually move the needle? Busyness feels like progress, but really it's the enemy. It's the enemy of productivity. And here's the kicker. Leaders, we're often the ones that are unintentionally fueling this thing. So in this episode, I'm going to unpack why your team is stuck in busy mode and how it's quietly costing your best people. And then I'm going to give you 3 shifts. As always, this is actionable that you can make to align your team around what really matters. So stick with me to the very end, because fixing this isn't going to be just about efficiency. It's going to be about really creating culture where people feel clear, they feel energized, and truly impactful. So let's get real about this. Why do so many teams stay stuck in busyness? For me, I think it's because busyness feels good in the moment, right? I mean, think about it. We're checking off boxes, we're answering emails, we're running from meeting to meeting. It really gives the illusion of progress. We feel like we're moving really fast, but in reality, what we're doing is we're just moving really fast in circles. So here's the tough truth. As business owners and as leaders, we reinforce this and we don't even realize it sometimes. So we praise, for example, the person who sends late night emails, or we tend to reward employees who look the busiest, even though they may not even be advancing the mission. So here's the shift for us. The most effective leaders that I've worked with understand that activity does not equal productivity. I know that's a shocker, but true productivity is about really aligning effort with impact. And alignment is one of our core framework competencies. So in this first part of our conversation, and today I took 3 pages of notes. Normally I try to condense things down to 2 pages, but today is an important conversation. And for those of you out there, those listeners that are not subscribed to our channel, please do me a favor, click on that subscribe button. It helps us in more ways than you know. It allows this channel to be spread across the platform. It tells the algorithm, really, the YouTube algorithm, that you're interested in this content. So if you want more of us, click on that subscribe button. In this first topic today, I want to break down this myth of busyness, and we're going to show you exactly why your team might be working harder than ever, but they're still not moving the needle where it counts. So again, like I mentioned earlier, and I have this, activity does not equal productivity. And I don't know really, I was thinking, where does that come from? Like, where did we get this sense that if you're busy, we're actually productive? And I think truly it has to do a lot with our 40-hour work weeks, our traditional 80-hour pay periods, right? If it's a bi-weekly pay period. And you have to work 9 to 5 jobs 8 hours a day, take your 30 minutes of lunch, whatever that looks like, your 10-minute breaks throughout the day. And if you put in 8 hours of work, that means it was productive. And that's a cultural thing. That's a cultural thing that a lot of businesses, I still think, hold on to. And today we're going to talk about this myth that many times we as leaders, we confuse this motion, this busyness with momentum. And you all know how I feel about momentum. I always like to create momentum in my teams and in my businesses, not necessarily motivation. Motivation maybe get us going in the right direction if we're off course or if we're misaligned, but we really need momentum. And just because we're moving and we're working 8 hours a day, that is not momentum in our businesses. So why is this important? And this is why. We see increased burnout when people, and it's not just because people are having to work 40-hour work weeks. That's not where I'm going with this. But if we consistently just fill our days with busy tasks that do not move the needle, increased burnout occurs. We also see increased turnover because people are looking around and they're like, I'm busy, but I don't know where my work fits into the overall mission and how we're moving the organization, the team forward. And eventually, they're going to die off. They're going to get burnt out, or they're just going to flat leave because they want to work somewhere where they feel that their effort is meaningful, that what they're doing is moving the needle. So here, and also I think this last point that I wrote down was it's missed opportunities because we are just heads down working all the time. We don't ever look up. We don't see the forest because we're so concentrated on the tree right in front of us. So those opportunities to gain efficiencies in our processes, to gain efficiencies in our systems, they go by the wayside. So John, one thing that I always want to bring these practical applications, and we're going to get to those, but I want to share a story first. I had a business that I was working with, a leader, business owner, and one of his rewards were for people who worked long hours, who put in like 12-hour days. And it wasn't a monetary award, besides he was giving them overtime for that. But the other piece was that he was verbally recognizing them. And so what was occurring? Two things. One, the overtime pay became something that people got used to. And so now his overhead went up. And at one time, there was a need for this overtime, for people to work overtime. But what happened was now they got used to that overtime. So they were filling their day with busy tasks that weren't going towards a project, that weren't advancing or growing the organization because they depended on that overtime pay. You see where the discrepancy is? And then two, by him recognizing just verbally amongst the team that these individuals were working long hours, giving them a pat on the back, which you should, because we all know that there are times when the organization, we need to all pull together. We need to work those long hours to get maybe a project over the task or whatever, that manufacturer, that widget. But then it was the expectation. And when that becomes the expectation, that's when we see burnout. That's where we see just the circle, activity where we're running in circles. We're running really fast. We're working really hard, but we're just chasing our tails in this situation. So what are some applications, John? Well, one thing here is I'm a big check-in, weekly check-ins with our team, weekly check-ins with individuals. And one question that I always like to ask, whether it's in that team meeting or that weekly check-in, is what is one thing that you're doing that directly drives our biggest goal? So you may ask yourself, what's our goal? Great question. You need to identify that. And we're going to discuss where leaders go wrong. And one of them is we don't have a clear goal. We don't have a clear sense of where we're going as an organization or as a company. So that's one. But one thing to ask, once you clarify that, create some clarity around that goal, ask your team what is one thing that they're doing that is moving the needle or that directly relates to that biggest goal. And then number two, I want you to audit one meeting this week. We fill our calendars with meetings, but audit that one meeting. And you're going to look at it. Do you really need to have that meeting on your calendar? Or is it something that you put on your calendar 9 months ago and it's still on there and people meet and we talk, but it's not, again, moving the needle. It's not benefiting the goals of the organization. So you're going to cut that meeting. If you still need the meeting, however, what I want you to do is I want you to look at restructuring that. Maybe it's for 60 minutes. Does it need to be a 60-minute meeting? Now you're into the project and you're into implementation and you just need to have check-ins. So maybe you can take that 60-minute meeting and reduce it down to a 15 or 20-minute meeting. You see where that's gained efficiency? Or even if you knock it down 10 minutes or 15 minutes to a 45-minute meeting. 15 minutes, you're giving that back to individuals to go and do what counts, do what actually moves the needle for the organization. So those are two great applications there. Now, right here, as we get into this second point, busyness doesn't happen on its own. Unfortunately, what happens starts with the leader. It really does. That's the hard truth. So sit back and digest this second topic we're going to talk about in the broader conversation of why is your team busy, right? But in the end, they're not being productive. It starts with us. It starts with us as the business owner, and it starts with us as the leader. So here's where leaders go wrong. Leaders unintentionally, we create this noise. There's noise all around us that we do not create, but as leaders, we create noise. As business owners, we create this noise. And this was back to the example that I gave earlier. The noise was the overtime, and then that became a norm. But we create noise by over-communicating. I'm a big communication advocate, but you can over-communicate. And you over-communicate by really giving unclear direction. So you can say the same thing over and over and over again, and that does not truly mean that you are communicating. Because if it's unclear about what that communication is in the first place, and you just keep repeating that, you're further driving home the point that people don't know where we're going, you don't know where the organization is going, and now you see people starting to jump ship. And then when we chase every single shiny object that comes before us, that creates this unclear direction as well. So these are things that we can unintentionally do. And trust me, I like shiny objects. I like the new thing, the new AI, the new process innovation, the new way to do charting, the new way to organize that Excel spreadsheet, whatever that looks like for your organization. I like new, but sometimes we just need to stick with what we're doing for a little while to see if it's working. Because if we're changing all the time, that's where that frustration comes from in our employees. Hey everyone, a quick break in the episode today. Are you struggling to find and keep the right employees? You're not alone. High turnover drains time, money, and morale, leaving us frustrated, overwhelmed, and feeling like we have to settle for less. I understand how tough hiring can be because I've lived it. And with over 21 years of building high-performance teams, I know how to turn hiring challenges into lasting employee success. Through my proven lead framework, we're going to analyze your processes, design a personalized strategy, and implement solutions that create confident and long-term results. Don't let turnover hold you back. Choosing this program is that first step towards a thriving workplace. Enroll today at thejohnespinosa.com and build the team you deserve. Imagine a team that works seamlessly together or keep facing the same costly cycle of turnover. The choice is yours. Now back to our episode. So again, why I mentioned this lack of alignment, it equals fragmentation. And when businesses and organizations, and this can happen in small organizations and it can happen especially in big organizations as we get farther from the workforce, fragmentation it'll break apart an organization. It'll break apart a business. And as people become fragmented, they become misaligned. Now they start assuming. And we've all heard that myth about assuming when I think it should be done one way or we're going one way. And that is different from the leader, the business owner's way or mindset of where they think the organization is going. Now we're running in opposite directions. So John, one example here is I worked with a business owner, and this was a different business owner who they were very innovative. They were creative. They were super smart. I mean, I walked in the door and their business was just over the top. It's a place that I wanted to go work for. But one of the complaints that I got when I was talking to people in their organization, in their business, was they were pivoting every month. Like, it seemed like they would get going when the mission was, they knew what the direction was, and then 30 days, 45 days would go by and boop, pivot the other way. And it wasn't necessarily a shiny object, but it was almost like they changed their mind on the original plan, and now the organization had to pivot. And this was probably about 50 employee organization, so not a small organization. And as that change moved down the ranks, what happened, it got to the very bottom, the people actually doing the work, and they were like, what are you talking about? I just started getting used to the way that we were doing it now, and you're changing it again. It was that new flavor of the month that was consistently happened. And then what it created was this culture of, as things change, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to wait it out. Ooh, have you all been there before? I'm just going to wait because I know it's going to change in the next 30 to 45 days. And as that culture breeds, I'm just going to wait it out culture, that's when organizations become stale. So what can we do here? This North Star metric, and you all know I love 90-day sprints. I'm a big 90-day sprint fan. I got my calendar up here that I love to do 90-day sprints in. I have 90-day goals on my whiteboards or on my marker boards that, I map out with the teams and my businesses for myself. So have a North Star and stick with it for 90 days. Go towards that North Star. You can go as fast as you want or as slow as you want, but just move in that direction for at least 90 days. And then when you get to the end, measure it. Did you get to where you wanted to go? Are you still moving in the direction? And I find that, and this goes back to, I'm a golfer. And when I swing a golf club, if I'm making big changes to my golf swing, I don't know exactly what's working. So what do? Every 4 or 5 rounds, I'll tweak just one thing, and I'll stick with that for another 4 to 5 rounds, see if it's working. And if it's working, I'll adopt it. If not, I tweak it a little bit. It's the same thing in business. If we're constantly making big changes to organizations every 90 days, we don't really understand where the metric is. And if that metric's moving up or down, what impacted that movement. So make small changes, but move towards the North Star for 90 days. And then the other thing that I have here is stop midweek priority changes. And you could even say stop every 30-day priority changes. Stick with it for 90 days. Figure out where the goal is, where you're going. And I know sometimes that shiny object's going to come in and you're going to squirrel and you're going to go over there and want to grab it and want it to adopt it. Refrain from that. Refrain from that, even if you need to have an accountability partner that says, hey, John, remember we agreed this is where we were going for the next 3 months. Powerful there. So we understand that busyness is a trap. We unfolded this myth of busyness. We also talked about how we fuel as leaders and business owners into the busyness trap. So what's the way out? The third point here, and thank you all for continuing to listen, because this is where the gold, this is the nugget, this is where we begin to be, right? This is where we integrate things into the culture of our organizations, is moving from busy to aligned. In alignment, I talked about it very beginning when we were teeing this episode up. Alignment is critical to allowing people to not feel as if they're spinning their wheels. And that's the whole point of this. When we get alignment within our businesses, let's just back up. When we are aligned as individuals, what does it feel like? Feels pretty good. You could call it you're in the flow. You see, you're clear. You have clarity, understanding, right? You can put all those words to it. But in the end, what all that looks like is you know where you're going. You know how what you're doing is helping you get there. That's alignment. When you break it down into the sizable, what can you see? That's what alignment is for me. So from here, alignment unlocks this productivity, this puzzle that we try to figure out, because everybody wants to be productive. That's how we grow our businesses. That's how we grow our revenue streams. That's how we grow our customer base. That's how we grow our brands. And what that alignment does is it creates these three things. It creates clarity. It creates focus. And this is the third one, most powerful. Here's the secret sauce, creates ownership. When people begin to own what they're doing, the work that they are accomplishing, now what it is, they have ownership, they have stake, they have the motivation or momentum to get the team there. And here, aligned teams, they just don't work harder. But from an outsider looking in, I can see how that can be confusing, because you're looking at them, you're like, John, you said not work harder. No, what I said was, don't spin your wheels. Don't be busy. Don't work 8 hours a day just to work 8 hours a day and fill that time with meetings, with messages. And then, oh, by the way, when you get out of that shift, you're still sending messages. You're still thinking about what you should have done in that day, or what you're going to do the day before or the day after, the next day. Why? Because you don't have alignment. And so what alignment brings to the conversation is, you still can work hard, but now you see the end. Now you see that forest. You're not just sprinting to the next tree in the forest. So aligned teams, one, they work on the right things. The right things that are the priorities that you have established based on whatever goal or whatever initiative that you're going to do for those 90 days. And then also, the power in alignment is that it drives results. It drives results. And when people are winning, they are going to stay. They're going to stay, so retention goes up as well. And they're going to recruit. So retention and recruitment, you're retaining the best employees, your high performers, because they are achieving, they're seeing results that are driving towards a goal or an initiative. And now what recruitment takes on is, come be a part of this. People are looking in, they're like, man, I like what John's team, what business is doing there. I'm going to go join that. And they're knocking on the door. So recruitment becomes easier. So those are byproducts. So some applications here, how we embed this into our culture, going back to what I talked about earlier, 90-day really strategic planning. I was a strategic planner for 4 or 5 years. We used to do 4 to 5 year strategic plans. And every time new leadership came in, guess what? We'd do a new strategic plan. And I saw that happening about every 2 years. So then I got this bright idea. Let's just do 2-year strategic plans, because they're going to change anyways. So back to people were seeing a 4 to 5 year, and they were like, you know what? We're never going to get there because it's going to change. So I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait this thing out, because I got longer than 4 to 5 years in my career. I'm just going to wait this thing out because I know it's going to change. So that's why I've gotten to the point where 2 years is even out the door, and I've gone to 90-day strategic planning. So our team meets our businesses. We talk about what the next 90 days is going to look like. And then we run and we work as hard as we possibly can to get there. And then the other thing, and I love this, I had a mentor tell me, do you have a stop doing list? Because you have a to-do list. You're very productive. You got things marked off. You're doing your 90-day strategic planning. But when new things come on board, what are you going to stop doing? And so I did. I was like, that is brilliant. Time is our most precious resource. We fill it no matter what. When we check something off, something else comes on the plate. But what is the not to do list? What are we not going to do? an example for this was, I'm not going to have 60-minute meetings. I'm going to reduce those meetings. I'm going to make sure that they are productive. When we are meeting, we're meeting about a purpose, a process, and whatever preparation that they need. Those are our 3 P's to meetings. Productive meetings. So that was one thing that I stopped doing. What are you going to stop doing? What's on your stop doing list? So, bottom line here, busyness, it really looks impressive. When you walk into a business, when you walk into an organization, and everybody has their heads down, they're all working, they all got spreadsheets pulled up, they're making calls, they're producing whatever we need to produce. It really, really looks cool. But in the end, are they productive? In the end, are you growing your business? In the end, do people understand what they're doing and how it meets the overall goal? And do they have that sense of ownership? Because if not, you need to implement one of these strategies. That's the challenge. Take one of the applications that we talked about today and implement them. We're going to start giving notes. So I know many of you listen to this podcast when you're driving. Many of you may be working out, listening to this. Thank you, for one. But 2, I understand that you can't take notes, right? So we are going to produce some notes with these actionable items. We're going to allow you to sign up to receive these notes via email. So in the show notes, we'll put a link down there for you to sign up, for you to get these notes. Leave comment. Did this help? Did it not help? What else could help? I enjoy that interaction, and I'll get back to you. I answer that stuff myself. So I'm going to leave you with this. Alignment allows our teams, our businesses, your employees to feel like they are working towards something that's bigger than themselves. And when we as human beings feel like we're connected, we have ownership into what we're doing and how it's helping others, that's a culture that you just can't manufacture overnight. So start today. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye.